this seminar today are mainly conceptual. So I'm not going to present data or methods, just like basically concepts. And the main task is to analytically distinguish three keywords, three buzzwords of contemporary politics. First one is, of course, populism. The second one is digital media. And the third one is fake news or post-truth. Let's say that post-truth is a broader category that can capture all these terms like fake news, misinformation, and disinformation, and so on. The aim then is to critically review or even question these notions, and above all, the way they are used in public discourse. And one of the key arguments is that populism is not necessarily digital, and it's not necessarily connected with post-truth. Therefore, it may also not necessarily have negative consequences for democracy. On the contrary, what I will be arguing is that perhaps anti-populists may have equally or perhaps more negative consequences on democracy and politics. And in the end, I'm going to present a few cases against these theoretical assumptions that populism is necessarily connected to digital media and fake news. And by presenting these cases, I'm going to try to, let's say, provoke or see whether these conventional arguments are actually true empirically. And because these conventional arguments basically are, let's say, they are guiding theory, and therefore they are guiding working hypotheses for the study of this phenomena. Okay, so in very simple language, populism is regarded as something bad. When we talk about populism these days in scholarly articles, in public discussions, in the media, and so on, populism is almost exclusively understood as something negative, right? Digital media, now I think the term digital media is more accepted in public sphere, but when we started seeing the proliferation of social media and digital media and so on and so forth, there was some suspicion as well. Maybe that's no longer the case. And the third term, fake news or post-truth, as I said earlier, it's also something that is necessarily bad in public discussions. Therefore, we see an ensemble of let's say these words come together because they have a negative status, right? Bad populism is using bad digital media to cause harm for democracy and society. For example, through the use of via spreading, let's say, fake news and misinformation. So, of course, I'm presenting this argument, this hypothesis, let's say, in a very simplistic way, right? But we can discuss a bit later whether this is true or not. Now I'm going to start a bit by, let's say, interrogating the three literatures I just mentioned. So populism, digital media, and fake news, right? So let's start from the literature on populism. There is supposedly a sort of consensus on the definition of populism, and some known scholars are Laclau, Canovan, and Mude, but there are way more scholars because the literature on populism has proliferated in the last decade, right? So this definition, let's say, revolves around the existence of two operational criteria: the people versus the elite. And these terms are understood very broadly. The people can be defined as a class, most commonly on the left, or on the nation, or as a nation, most commonly on the right? But besides these operational criteria, which in my view, is not really a definition, but a starting point to study populist phenomena. Besides these operational criteria, little else is agreed. For example, the nature of populism is debatable. Its relationship with the politics is also very debatable. Some people say has negative consequences for democracy. Some people has positive ones. And it can be argued that this disagreement on the nature and on orientation of populism rests on the type of democracy each thinker or scholar or expert who talks about populism is connected to. So, for example, if you're a liberal, populism is necessarily a threat for democracy because the conventional argument is that populism is against representation, is against institutions, and so on and so forth. But if you're a radical Democrat, believing that you want more participation, direct participation of the people in decision-making processes, you may argue that populism is kind of enhancing democracy, right? So here you start seeing that the terrain on populism literature is not quite, let's say that the argument I'm trying to make is that there's no one agreement, one definition about the nature and direction of populism. And again, besides this definition, it is evident in the literature that the concept has normative baggage, right? Which is connected again with the type of democracy each person who talks about populism prefers. And most commonly, while scholars agree that populism is defined as having these features, talking in the name of the people and against the elites, then you see lots of publications framing populism as necessarily anti-democratic, illiberal, connected to demagogy and authoritarianism. So beyond this, let's say, agreement, the people versus the elite, then it comes, the definition comes with, normative baggage. The second literature that we're using today is that of digital media. Classic literature, Mazzoleni, Stromberg, and so on and so forth, started viewing the emergence of digital media through a lens of decentralization. So if before we had established forms of media, now we have like new media, digital media emerging, and in a way posing certain challenges to traditional forms of media like the press, TV, and so on and so forth. So in a sense, and to connect it in a way with populist literature, while the press and TV are understood as established forms of media or forms of media that are owned or controlled by the establishment, social media are understood kind of as the opposite, because they're not owned by the establishment, because they're decentralized, as we just explained. And some scholars have even argued that they might fuel anti-establishment sentiments as well. So based on these assumptions, a few theoretical expectations follow. So if populists are anti-establishment by definition, we just said that they're against the elite, and digital media are also kind of against the established media because they're promoting alternative forms of communication, Then we see that there's some sort of resonance or affinity between digital media and populism. So let's say in the beginning of last decade, it was believed that digital media helped fuel more populism. And this is not to say, of course, that digital media and populism have no connection, right? The new literature on digital media, and here I'm referring to the literature that emerged after the Square movements, for example, CIES-Iscte, and Giorgos, who have been studying mobilizations in the age of anti-austerity contentious cycle. They spoke about techno-populism or populism 2.0. Giorgos has even talked about the digital party, right? So by techno-populism and populism 2.0, these scholars understood, like movements that carried certain characteristics that resemble populism. For example, these movements questioned the elites, questioned the process of representation, political participation as being elitist and excluding the people. They used new technologies and social media to mobilize, right? So this led CIES and Guya and Carvalho to talk about techno-populism and populism 2.0. And populism 2.0 because if traditional populism has to do with traditional forms of mobilization, then populism 2.0 is the kind of populism that uses technology. So it seems that we have reached a point where digital media are no longer understood as something that is exogenous to politics. But rather is something that is endogenous. In other words, most sort of politics nowadays and political actors are using digital media to communicate their message. And this is true, I think, not just for populists, but anyone. The third literature that I'm bringing in here is that of post-truth. As I said, post-truth is the umbrella term that can host terms such as misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and conspiracy theories, right? Misinformation is understood as the name has it, false information, right? And disinformation is, again, false information that is spread deliberately. Fake news are understood as a form of information that is trying to mimic real news. They appear real, but they're not real. This may happen through like photoshopping or editing and manipulating material and so on and so forth. Conspiracy theories, I think we all know there is a common line of argument from conspiracy theories is that there is a small group, a small elite that conspires against our interests because they have some sort of economic or political interest to control the population. And again, many scholars are connecting these terms with populism. The fact that conspiracy theories are attacking a small elite, it has some resonance with the definition of populism, the people versus the elite. But as I will be arguing in a bit, this is a different term and should be kept distinct. So there's a recent book by Conrad et al. Was published a month or 2 months ago that argues that all these terms I just described, they can be put under the umbrella of post-truth populism. According to them, Post-truth is often defined as a mode of communication where a certain type of populist actor uses the infrastructure provided by social and other digital media to infuse the public sphere with mis and disinformation. This is a very nice quote because it kind of backs my argument that all these terms that we're analyzing together are unnecessarily put together, and they managed to do that in just a few lines. Besides literature on post-truth, with the rise of misinformation and fake news in the last few years, with so many political scientists who ascribe more to the behavioral side of social science, who aspire to study the connection between beliefs in conspiracies and populism. So basically, they try to measure and understand, whether and to what extent people who believe in conspiracies are more likely to vote for populists. And I think this is kind of shocking because they make certain claims about people's mentalities. So there is a certain populist mentality that is more prone to read fake news or vote for populists, follow post-truth politics, and so on and so forth. And why is that shocking is that because it goes to such a degree of intrusion into people's subjectivity, and they try to come up with a specific mentality. Beyond this, we have also seen many social scientists or computational scientists who try to develop applications, platforms, and websites through coding and stuff that are trying to block fake news. Try to, like when you're on Twitter, for example, and there is a certain source of information that is not considered valid, it blurs it, so the reader cannot see it. So these applications are trying to protect the user because they know that they know, in quotes, of course, they know that a certain website is not a good website. If it's not The Guardian, for example, and it's a weird blog that not many people visit, or the information is not confirmed by many sources, then it's considered as fake news. Of course, here, what I'm trying to say is that basically I'm not denying the existence of fake news. I just want to highlight the zeal and the effort of certain experts and scientists to protect humanity from false information. And moving to the next slide, I'm going to present a few critical responses to, let's say, the conventional perspectives on post-truth. First of all, the existence of fake news presupposes the existence of real news. The existence of misinformation, disinformation presupposes the existence of true or valid information. And the existence of post-truth presupposes the existence of truth. Of course, just to repeat again, because this is a sort of a provocative argument, what I'm trying to say here is not that I want to promote fake news or misinformation, but sort of scrutinize those who unreflectively think that there is one single truth. Who owns real news, and who owns the one and only truth? This is perhaps an epistemological question. Of course, The Guardian is a newspaper that has integrity and so on and so forth. but many times when you read perspectives in such newspapers, you can detect certain traits of elitism and dismissal towards, let's say, people who buy into fake news, who are commonly presented as ignorance. So there is a big conceptual mess here. And this mess has to do with the connection of these literatures that I just described. Okay, let me go back to the very first slides and the aims of the research in order to describe again this conceptual mess. So populism, digital media, and post-truth are three notions, three concepts that are normatively loaded. Sorry for the spelling mistake. Normatively loaded means that in contemporary public discussions, they receive a very negative meaning, okay? They are presented as notions that are threats to contemporary democracy. They pose threats to institutions. So if these three terms have, all of them individually have pejorative meanings, it is easy, I argue, for political elites, journalists, and experts to put these terms together in order to give a very easy answer as to the bad state of contemporary democracy. So, to put it more simply, what is today's problem in terms of democracy? Why our societies suffer today? It is because, you know, post-truth populism is capitalizing on digital media and is distorting truth, is distorting our societies, and so on and so forth. And as we said before, digital media are understood in opposition to traditional mediums of communication. Populism is understood as a political force or as a project that is lies in opposition to traditional political parties. And this thing creates an easy association between populists who use digital media for, you know, to spread fake news and distort democracy. So my question here is it better to continue using the term populism in this sense, or should we move to another concept, very relational, let's say, concept of populism, that is the concept of anti-populism? As we have seen in the first slides, when I was providing a very short overview of the literature of populism, populism is understood as something, as a project that articulates, on the one hand, the people as a social majority, excluded social majority against the elite, just that. But all these definitions we have seen, especially from Conrad 2023, it seems that all these notions are put together. Populists use digital media to spread post-truth politics. So, to repeat the question, should we keep the term populist to describe this phenomena, or should we talk about anti-populism? This means that we should make a move, basically, from the meaning of populism. What does populism mean? What is its consequences on democracy and society? We should move from these questions and understand or examine better the discourses that use the term populism. How do they use it? Who uses it? When? And what are the effects? Right? So these are some questions that de Glin, Glinos, and Mondon 2018 are posing. in a kind of they're constructing a very similar argument that we should move from populism to anti-populism. So what is anti-populism? Anti-populism can be understood as a sort of discourse that lies in opposition to populism. It exhibits traits of aversion towards people-centric discourses. So discourses that use the term people, political parties that they have let's say more common language, political style. They have the term popular sovereignty as a sort of a keyword in their political discourse, and so on and so forth. And another characteristic of anti-populism is that it has some traits of democratic elitism. This means that when you study anti-populist discourses, it is often very evident that they have certain assumptions that experts, technocrats, and representatives know better than the people, and thus they should be in control of political institutions, representation, and so on and so forth. Okay. Second slide doesn't move. And here, I just want to give a few visual examples of anti-populism, right? Making basically fun of populist actors. So we see, let's say, this is a poster where a particular demographic in the US is portrayed as sort of conservative Amish people. They have also like the Fork. It's a conservative constituency, and therefore it is expected to vote for Trump, according to this poster, hence the red cap. Then we see the New Yorker cover showing Donald Trump with a mask in his face. Of course, my argument here is not that I want to congratulate Donald Trump for the way he dealt with the pandemic. Obviously, the way he dealt with it was catastrophic. However, what is important to see here is the way he's presented by journalists, by a magazine that is widely read by progressives, liberals, cosmopolitans, and so on and so forth. And I think it's quite evident that what they're trying to say is that Donald Trump is stupid, which might not be untrue. However, what we're scrutinizing here is the way political elites and journalists and experts are kind of talking in public, right? And then we can also raise the question of what are the effects. To move also on the left of the spectrum, this is an older picture when Jeremy Corbyn in the UK was kind of, gaining lots of media attention as a leader of the Labour Party, and the mainstream media tried to connect him with Soviet Russia, the KGB, and so on and so forth, because obviously, as we all know, to be a communist is a very bad thing, right? So they tried to discredit him because I think he was gaining a lot of popularity and attention. But of course, anti-populism is nothing new, and this is a poster from the late 1800s in the US, when the so-called populist party, its real name was the People's Party, but it was quite a long name, so they decided to rename themselves unofficially as the Populist Party. It was a party that tried to nationalize the rail in the US. It criticized a lot political elites, the fat cats of Wall Street, the banks, and so on and so forth. So it can be said that it had some sort of social democratic agenda, if we can speak with today's terms. And this poster basically is doing the same thing as these posters. It's trying to say basically that the Populist Party in the US is like a big snake that is going to kill the Democratic Party. And Thomas Frank, an American journalist, has written quite a lot on American anti-populism of that period. And in his recent book, he's also talking about contemporary times. So for anyone interested in American anti-populism or the notion of anti-populism in general, you can download his book. So we've seen a bit of the anti-populist attitude. I think what it misses, like the critique of populism, which is articulated by anti-populists, is missing reflexivity by political elites. So what about the causes and triggers of populism? Are these political elites talking about or tackling, in fact, increasing inequalities or unresponsiveness from the side of political elites? It is said that the causes and trigger factors that give rise to populist phenomena in contemporary times have to do with unaddressed political, economic, and cultural demands. So when there's a downward mobility, when people lose their jobs, when people are unhappy about immigration, let's say, and so on and so forth, and political elites do not really respond to these concerns that become grievances, that become demands, it may lead to the rise of populism. But we do not see political elites addressing issues of inequality, of unemployment, of precarity in young people, and so on and so forth. Instead, the easy answer, instead of addressing these economic and political issues, is to blame populism, right? So there's a lot of literature like Stavrakakis, Katsanbekis, even Moffitt, who are bringing in this reflective perspective on populism, on anti-populism, arguing that political elites seem to be very much responsible for the rise of populism. Okay, so here I'm going to show a few cases of contemporary political parties who are either understood as populist or digital. And what I'm going to try to do is basically argue against these conventional arguments that we have seen in the beginning of this seminar, right? So the case of Syriza has been defined as a paradigmatic case of left-wing populist party that emerged in Greece during or after the anti-austerity political cycle. While this party is populist, it's not really digital, right? So the association, the necessary association between populism and digital media seems to fail in this respect. So in Greece, of course, from 2008 onwards, we have seen the use of decentralized forms of digital media. From 2008 onwards, we have seen the use of indie media, and also later in the anti-austerity contentious cycle, we have seen the use of Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as means to communicate political messages. However, these mediums are not really, like digital in the sense that they're not like platforms or special applications. They're websites that are used or social media that are used by everyone, right? So there's nothing, let's say, special to it in the way that it is described by theoretical work on populism and digital media. Mm-hmm. Of course, the reasons that these digital media or decentralized forms of communication were used is because established forms of media were perceived as corrupt in Greece, right? They were perceived as owned by tax-evading media moguls who were relatives or friends of the establishment. But although we have seen a relative use of the internet in these mobilizations, the main protests, the protests of the square movements, Anarchismeni, the Greek version of Indignados, took place in person. Of course, and digital media was a tool that brought people together there, but the actual protest took place in person. And the main party that emerged out of this mobilization, the party of Syriza, resembles more like a traditional party in terms of organization than a digital party. So in this sense, we have a party that is populist by definition, but not really digital. Okay. But when we move to the case of the Movimento 5 Stelle, the 5-star movement in Italy, we can see a party that is populist or was populist, and it was also very digital. And because of these features of being a digital party, it was extensively studied by scholars of digital media like Carvalho and the series that we have seen in the previous slides, right? What was digital about this party? It created a platform called Rousseau, from the philosopher Rousseau, and it has its own symbolism here, where people could create an account and participate in discussions within the party, how to raise certain issues. They could vote for these issues, and the party could also adopt them as policies. So here we see an example of digital democracy, let's say, within the party, right? So in comparison to Syriza, we have seen, we can see a populist party that is much more digital. Here are some screenshots from the platform. It shows how many members it has, and so on and so forth, and the referendums they can put forward. And here I want to bring another example. So what I'm trying to do basically with these slides is it shows that there are different degrees of parties that are either more or less populist, and regardless of how populist they are using different degrees of digitality, let's say. And now moving to another example, that is Barack Obama. who is not populist, but was said to be quite digital, relatively to the period that he emerged, right? We see there's a dedicated Wikipedia page on the way Barack Obama used social media. There is an article in The Atlantic. Obama was too good at social media, right? Is he a populist? Not really. Although there was this video where it was before the end of his last administration, where he kind of claimed the term populism by saying, by going on stage and saying, why do you call Donald Trump a populist? I did Obamacare, meaning Obamacare is a policy for the people, right? So we see him claim the term. For me, it is not, it's not enough to call an actor a populist. But anyways, we see this contrast in terms of the way social media is used by populists and not populists, right? And then we arrive to the case of Donald Trump. I don't really want to claim that he's not populist because I've written a book about it and it's going to be a very bad marketing. But also what I'm trying to say in the book is that while Trump is quite populist in terms of his style, you know, it has this bad style, bad manners, and you know, like a not conventional style for a politician. His transgression, like maybe transgression is a better term to use instead of you know, like populism in the real sense of the word. But the key argument that I'm trying to make in the book is that while Trump exhibits certain features that are populist, perhaps the most defining characteristic of his discourse is his nativism. So he's more on the radical, xenophobic, nativist right than on the populist, you know. So he's quite digital. His presidency was considered as the Twitter presidency. But does this make him populist? And another question that might emerge here is, don't all politicians use Twitter and other forms of social media? And I'm putting these questions here just to like create more confusion and provoke this necessary association between the use of the digital media and populism. And just to conclude here, I'm going to go back to some key arguments that I made. So the negative framing of terms such as populism, digital media, and post-truth politics create, let's say, they pave the way for their association together. They all lie supposedly in opposition to established forms of politics, communication, and socialization. Therefore, it's kind of easy to just assume and claim that populists are all post-truth. They use digital media to harm democracy, spread fake news, and so on and so forth. Some scholars like Aurélien Mondon that I mentioned in one of the previous articles, they talk about the populist hype, which means that there is an excessive use of the term populism. It's used by everyone, anytime, uncritically and widely, just to describe any phenomenon we don't like. And you can see many articles, for example, in The Guardian, having the term populism in the title, and then you click on it and you read 800 words, 1,000 words, and the term populism is not mentioned again, right? So that's the argument Mondon is trying to make. basically the term populism is used as a way to attract readers, but the article is not really about populism. And this helps creating further confusion as to the meaning of the concept. It's of course connected with the notion of anti-populism, because if hype means basically a more uncritical way of using the notion of populism, then negative notions and associations between populism and other very bad concepts is very easy, right? So what I try to do today is argue that before tackling the way these notions are associated, because I do not argue that these notions are not associated at all, we first need to distinguish them, at least analytically. And this is what I try to do in the very first part of the presentation, just show how these terms are defined individually, and we have seen that they're not necessarily connected. So perhaps future research or research on post-truth, digital media, and populism should take these considerations before uncritically reproducing, like stereotypes about populism and post-truth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Giorgos.
Thanks.
So maybe I try to turn this there. If someone wants to ask something, so that we already have some questions from the floor. I don't know if Tiago, maybe I can manage the physical room to use
sure.
The virtual room. That's fine. Okay. So if someone in the physical room would like to ask something, see. See if you can just move, because yeah, we don't have a very nice room for. Okay. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. My question is about the use of social media by politics that have a political social approach, like Obama had with the Obamacare, but not essentially a populist. I was a little confused in this part. If you would mind explaining a little more. Some more questions in the room? Maybe we collect some few more questions.
Also at home?
See? I also have some questions, and if there isn't anybody else, I can maybe take advantage of my position to just ask something very quick. But first of all, thank you very much. I think it was very clear, and really enjoy your talk, and also it was touching many points that we are dealing with in our classes. Well, particularly the real weight of digital technologies that sometimes is a little bit too overestimate, but well, we know after 20 years of the use of digital technology in politics that we need to be more careful in addressing their real weight. So just two quick things about the point about post-truth. When you say that, well, if you think that there is a post-truth, we assume that there is a truth, or if we think that there is there are fake news, we assume that there are really news. I think it's important, and this is something I'm very well, and it's not really my area, but I'm very interested in. There is a lot of work about defining what is not true, but at least a true argument. So there is all the work in social epistemology, philosophy of language, argumentation theory, linguistic, etc. So it's not that is just not intuitive. So what is true, what is not true? So it's a kind of relative, there is some relativism, but there are disciplines that are very serious and very well built tools to address what is a true argument, what is not true argument, and also all the theory about fallacies, about manipulative discourse. So for instance, a lie is when an argument is a lie, and when it's not. For instance, if we have some scientific discovery, it is contradicted by the next scientific discovery, is not a fake news. It's just so there are, I think, very clear criteria in these disciplines, and maybe in political science we should. I myself try to understand a little bit more, but I think that we should have a look at what they are doing, because they have an amazing work on hate speech and how to redefine these things that I think that is important. Another point is about that's true about when we look at digital, and if you have this if you contemplate this in your work, and I think that because we were discussing a lot in the classes, I think it can, if you have some reflection about, so digital is not all the same. So like the series also say this, like it's not that a blog is not the same as a digital participatory software. Software for deliberative or participatory democracy implies a different view of democracy. So also when there is this association between digital and populism, is not all the digital. There are specific type of platform that vehiculate a specific view of democracy and specific internal organization. So how you think, what do you think about this reflection? And then last point is about this idea of critical citizen, of Pipa Norris and other people as Mastro Paolo, etc. So that is true that their elites are corrupted and etc. But they are not more corrupted now than 20, 30, 40 years ago. So what she says is that what increased is the capacity of citizens to be critical, and this is also a consequence of having more information. So this, in this sense, the connection between digital and more information and more access to information and like kind of crisis of representative democracy. And these are just my questions. Thank you. Sorry for being many, but maybe
should I comment and then see if there's more? Okay, so the first question from the student, I didn't catch her name, was about populism, non-populism in Obama. So what I tried to say there is that because I was trying to show different types of political actors who can be defined populist to different degrees. So populist, less populist, or more populist, you know. And at the same time, they can be let's say they have different degrees of being digital, right? So what I said is that Syriza is defined as populist by literature, but it's not really digital. Cinque Stelle is defined as populist and is quite digital. And Obama is not really defined as populist. And I gave an example where he once claimed the term for himself, being populist. So, but literature does not define him as populist in general. However, he was understood as a paradigmatic case of, like a politician who started using social media excessively for his campaign. He used social media to, it was an integral part of his campaigning strategy and also communication strategy. If you see one of the articles that I put there, is claiming that Obama was presenting himself as a cool father, like a common person through social media. So in a way, he started a trend in mainstream, perhaps non-populist politics, right? But he's not necessarily understood as populist. And the other thing I said about Obama, or the thing Obama himself said, was that he tried to, let's say, criticize journalists for calling Donald Trump a populist. That was in 2016. Of course, journalists were calling Donald Trump a populist because he was unconventional and provocative and so on and so forth. So they were being anti-populist. Journalists were being anti-populist, but they denounced Trump as populist, not because he was talking in the name of the people and against the elite necessarily, but mostly because he was being transgressive, right? And Obama protested this claim, saying, I made Obamacare. Obamacare is considered by Obama, at least, as a Medicare program for the majority. So in a way, Obama himself claimed the term populist for his person. Yeah, I don't know if this answers the students' question.
Is it okay for you? Yeah, she said that
Okay.
she's.
Then to Guya, thanks for your comments. They're kind of providing food for thought, basically. I didn't perceive them as questions per se, but as kind of comments that can take part of a discussion about post-truth politics, let's say. One thing I want to say, of course, we can distinguish between a historic truth. For example, the Holocaust has happened, and it's very important not to go to that degree of relativization, of saying like historical events didn't happen, you know? That's not what I'm trying to say. And perhaps it's easier to see these discourses, not in terms of truth and not truth, but in terms of claims to truth, right? So different sides are claiming truth for themselves. And the important thing is not whether something is true or false, because followers of political parties and leaders are not going to open books and see, okay, according to this encyclopedia, this is true. According to these statistics, this is not true and stuff. People follow the leaders they want to follow. And perhaps the content of what they say does not really matter. And there's a book about intuition. I can't remember the name. Was saying that people have already decided who are they going to vote before this person starts presenting their programmatic thesis. And of course, there are you know, applications that can detect a lie, and of course the comment about Norris and the citizens have let's say developed the capacity to be more critical. But I also think that other citizens, let's say not the critical citizens, also have the capacity and willingness to be uncritical.
Giorgos, the idea of critical citizen is that anybody is critical in a certain way. So it's not that in the good and in a wrong way. In a certain way, we are all more attentive, more critical in a certain way.
Yeah.
Each of us has more information because of,
yeah.
Sometimes it's true information, sometimes it's not, but we have more. So as a tendency, we are more criticize more. Is this?
Yeah, of course, and some citizens may also want to criticize, not because they have, you know, like they have a good faith that they want to improve democracy and they want to make a critical claim. Maybe they just hate the political establishment and they want to blame anyone. So in this sense, they can be critical, but what is the consequence? And of course, this is one of the consequences of decentralization of information and so on and so forth. But I don't think that, and this is not something you say, it's just like a claim I'm making. I don't think that applications that want to detect fake news can stop citizens' desire.
I didn't mention applications.
No, I said this is not a claim you made. It's just like a claim I want to make, like to broaden the discussion. Is that even if we can detect fake news and distinguish them from real news, I think political discussions may well disregard any, like platforms or critical thinkers that are warning about all these things, because people will engage with politics the way they want and disregarding, like I don't know, expert advice and so on and so forth. And the other thing you said, it was I found it very interesting about digital democracy as like something that has to do with the way people are organizing, and perhaps we need to see digital democracy not as another form of participatory democracy, but as something different, because participatory democracy in the physical sense is one thing, and participatory democracy through the use of digital media may be another typology, or like subtype of democratic participation. But perhaps you know more on this issue than me.
But thank you so much. In any case, there are many details here that we can discuss, and it's very interesting. I think that Tiago detected a question somewhere.
Yes, Miguel had a question. So if Miguel wants to come forward to ask the question.
Yes, hi. So my question is about, it's actually a curiosity I have about what are your regards about fact-checking, because fact-checking is a tool that nowadays is most common in digital media to prevent those false claims or false statements and to prevent some disinformation and misinformation. So where do you fit fact-checking, and what are your considerations about fact-checking? That's my question.
Yeah, thanks. I think my response goes in line with previous comments I made. Of course, first I need to clarify that misinformation may cause harm to democracy and so on and so forth. But what I am also concerned is if this fact-checking sometimes it comes through applications, right? Or some tools that you add in your browser and blah blah. Like it may piss people off because it's not something you choose. Of course, you choose to enable this thing, but it tells you it just like takes the agency from the reader, from the user, and it decides whether something is true or false. I'm sure like there is qualitative difference, of course, between information that comes from The Guardian and a very random website spreading weird information about COVID and so on and so forth. Like that's not what I'm denying here. The distinction, that's not. But what I'm trying to say is that there is a cat outside the house. Yeah, but this may generate, let's say, issues in terms of agents.
See? Okay, what happened?
There is a question in the chat.
Ah, see.
Was there a problem with the connection?
No.
Huh.
Oh, Giorgo, I just thought it would be easier for me to write the question.
Okay.
But if you want, I can, explain it as well.
Yeah, please.
I very much share your analytical, let's say, take on populism.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very much a side issue, really. It's not central, I think, to your analysis. It's just that often I thought that the term progressive is also loaded and rather than analytical. In other words, it's kind of a way of saying left wing or something about social justice or social equality, maybe. In addition, of course, there is the whole idea of progress, which is itself the notion of progress, a term that could also be challenged on various grounds.
Mm-hmm.
More like it's not so central, I would say, to your.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I'm not sure if I use the term progress or progressive, but as a discourse theorist myself,
it was in the last slide where you say something about progressive and democratic, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, but I really agree with you. And the example of US politics is very much telling in terms of the way progressive is used, because obviously in the US the term the left is not really used. We know why. The way the political party system is kind of operating in the very center and so on and so forth. And they use the word liberal and the word progressive are used as let's say other words instead of the term left. Liberal is more on the left, right? And progressive is more on the center. But the way they use these terms is just to avoid using the term left. So I would agree with you that as a term is loaded and perhaps is masking I don't know, other issues, right?
Okay.
Can I make a comment as well?
Some more questions from the room here? Nobody would like to answer something? Tiago?
Yeah, so when I was finishing my degree, and I remember quite well. I mean, it's interesting how the discussion about media and the new media and digital media and social networks and the internet, how the discussion changed over the last 20 years. Because when I was doing my degree and finishing in 2009, there was actually quite positive view of the potential that the internet would have connecting the people in the elite or people in parliament and politicians, and this idea of new public sphere. And it's very interesting how the discussion changed so much. I mean, my comment is because you talk about a lot the digital media. Well, you mentioned CIES as a classical party and so on, but I was thinking that it's interesting because actually most of the resonance that these parties have sometimes is potentiated and is spread around by the traditional means of the communication, like TV, like Fox News, like the press. So how do you see this connection between the two of them? Actually, this comes after yesterday's comment by the Prime Minister yesterday, when in Portugal, that he was asked, that people were giving a lot of attention to the new populist party in Portugal, and his answer was, well, I don't know any TV or newspaper. You are the ones giving them a platform, not me. So I was thinking about this connection between the traditional mass media and the digital media. And if we are not, and if we should be paying more attention to the mass media.
I don't know if we should favor one over the other. I think definitely we have passed from this point where digital media is something new and you know, it's like anti-establishment and stuff. Like many non-established forms of communication, like I don't know, Twitter is now used by, I don't know, in The Guardian, for example, saying, oh, these doctors said this thing, you know? So it's so much blended in a way that it's difficult to say, okay, this is more, you know, like accurate because it was said in New York Times and not on Twitter, because now it's so much blended. And also what we see now is so many alternative forms of communication, like podcasts, blogs and stuff that receive millions of views, right? And it can be both reactionary and progressive. There's so many good podcasts on them, you know, like a semi-academic activist. Again, I realized that I used the term progressive. Sorry, Jan. But you know what I mean. You hear some really good podcasts, and there's lots of like depth and value in the information they share, and I'm not sure if we should favor one over the other. And maybe even more provocatively, sometimes let's say the digital media are even more progressive and innovative than I don't know, state television or something.
Do we have some more questions from the floor? Here? So it seems that everybody's satisfied with your intervention that covered all the doubts. But for sure, maybe other, I don't know, questions or curiosities will emerge.
Guya, I was thinking, like, for the comment you made earlier, I was thinking one example, you know, where let's say far-right political actors are invited. There was this incident in the UK a few days ago where Matt Goodwin was invited to talk in a kind of left-wing alternative media, Novara Media, and everyone on Twitter, you know, like scholars who are criticizing the mainstream of the far right, like Aurélien Mondon, they were criticizing this move. They're like, oh no, you should not give a platform to someone with reactionary ideas, because this is what has kind of helped the mainstreaming of the far right over the last years. And Novara Media was claiming, no, we will defeat them on the ground of reason and arguments. And then if you see the discussion, it seems that, of course, Matt Goodwin is defeated on the ground of reason, but no one cares. You know, like it seems that it's much more important for his followers that he's getting legitimized by appearing there, and the content of what he's saying is not really important. And this may be related to our discussion between you know, like really identifying what is a fake news, what is a lie, what is true and stuff. It may be, you know, like help us think that what I was saying earlier, that it doesn't matter if it's a lie, because some people may not care. It's like Trump supporters. Did they care for his attitude, for his lies, for the fact that he didn't realize much of his promises? They didn't.
Sure, for sure. Now, what I was saying is that it matters for us as scholars.
Mhm.
So that and there are instruments and tools to address this. That maybe as political science sociologists, we are not really in this work, but we need to know that there is a lot of work on that. So that and it's not argumentation theory is not just or analytical philosophy or philosophy of language is not just like intuitive. There are specific tools, and when I mean so really analytical tools to address when an argument is a manipulative argument, because an argument can be fake but not manipulative because the speaker is not aware it is fake, for instance. You understand? So there are, and I think that this is important for us to take into account this carefulness that we have the instrument to address what is fake and not. And after I know that in terms of public, what we can do with this, but for instance, is very important for public policy. So like for analyzing a politician's speech, etc. I think that is important to be aware that this was my, but it's true that in terms of public, maybe people don't care so much if they are fake or not, and just the impact that a certain speech have on the imaginary.
And the relevance of the public, I think is because of the fact that they vote and they decide, right? So we as scholars may say, okay, this is manipulative, this is fake, this is blah, blah. But if in the end, what matters is not what experts know, which are a few, let's say, maybe what matters is who votes, how, and what are the consequences of the vote. And
disciplines is matter. What they do, I think it matters. Like
oh yeah, for the it doesn't matter. But what I'm talking more in terms of electoral outcomes, not in terms of whether our work matters.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. But I think that some more communication can be interesting.
Sure.
They are doing, particularly in these things, because they analyze the really also hate speech and so that was just my point. Sorry because I was really reading a lot of these things so I'm a little bit obsessed with this, or really inside this reflection in this moment. So you really touched something that is very interesting. So I want to jump into this discussion.
No, it's good. It's good.
Okay, so maybe if there are no more questions from the floor, we can finish here. Yeah, so the students are asking if we can give you can share your email.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, and so for sure there will be more curiosity and doubts emerging maybe in the next hours, because it's everything very fresh. So possibly someone will be in contact with you with more questions. And so maybe.
Of course, no problem at all.
Thank you very much, Giorgos. When is your book
for inviting
to be out?
It should be in the first few days of May.
Okay, so we try to be updated and also to order here for the library so that the students can have it next year for the.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Syllabus. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much. And
thanks for inviting me again.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming today, to joining us, and see you next seminar.
So
I'm closing.
okay.